Everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be putting up something that's already on the internet. It's a podcast that my friend invited me onto. Now, this is not nearly very professional, it is not high quality, but it is quality enough and professional enough, and I felt honored that he invited me onto his podcast. Now, he goes by the name Double A, and he's an agnostic, and so we have a conversation for about an hour, a little bit over an hour, judging by the length of this video. And I do try to encourage him to read his Bible, because why not? And I bring up a lot of other good points that I thought was worth preserving, and because my children will probably be watching this at least at some point, at least I hope so, I want to kind of preserve this in the immortality of whatever YouTube is. It was on his channel once before, and I'll put his link down in the description below if you want to go look for that, or any of his other episodes where he has other guests on and talks about various things, but you've kind of gathered so far my area, my interest is philosophy, theology, talking about the bigger, the better, the greater things, and as far as I can tell, there's nothing better than Christ. So here's our conversation. I hope you enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Crown of Thoughts, Chad Johnson. How's it going?
It's good to see you, Aaron. Thanks for inviting me over.
He's at Starbucks, and so I was picking him up from Starbucks. He goes over to Giant. I'm like, I'll get a coffee quick. And I walk in there. There's just so much going on. And it was taking them forever to get a fucking cup of coffee to the person in front of me. And I'm looking at their menu and I'm like, dude, can they just give me a Rutter's coffee? So we left.
I don't even think they have regular coffee on the menu itself. It's just
I couldn't find it. Yeah. I couldn't find just coffee.
They have pictures of stuff that's like seasonal. So I usually go, because I'm in there so infrequently, whatever's on the picture, just give me that. That seems good.
Yeah, I wanted that frozen thing that was on the picture.
That kind of transitions to the I guess the topic of addiction. things that are in front of your face can very much be addicting, especially if you're taught that they're okay.
Yeah, if they're considered to be normal, like we were talking about with the sugar, it's addictive. But if you think that's just everyone does it, or whatever,
everyone does it.
It's almost like how cigarettes used to be. Not so much now, but it used to be like, yeah, it's bad, but everyone does it.
It took us
fucking do it.
Whole generation to figure out that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And
in the 50s, I think it was just like a thing. They didn't really think about it.
Well, it's also something like the loudest voice, and if the money's attached to it, will become what your culture thinks about and values. Not often the most correct voice, the wisest voice, but the one that's full of passion. Because passion and pain go hand in hand. If something hurts, well, you're going to probably think about it more so than something else. And that's usually like an agency of passion.
Negative shit. Yeah. You attract to it, negative shit more.
And the things in the negative are like one of the causes of agency. Like this is replete in Scripture. The agency of negativity pushes people to go back the correct way.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. So when I started doing like improving my life and everything, my fear was like the momentum from the life I was living was causing me pain. When the momentum from running away from that pain ends, how am I going to stay doing the right thing? Like, what's going to be my motivation beyond pain?
Yeah. So you need,
and that does go back to that one thing. Who was it? Nietzsche or someone? Someone said something about. Oh no, it was just Jordan Peterson. He's like, yeah, it's a logical thing to say. There's no point to life, or there's no meaning to anything, and you're a complete nihilist. But once you drive a stake through your arm, now something matters. So pain's like the only motivation. Does that mean you're a nihilistic or style mentality? You think?
If pain is the only motivation. Well, I actually took a minute to think about. So I try to find the common denominator. My thing I like to do in the evangelical sense is wherever you are, I'm going to try to pull you to Christ. And I need to understand you first. And every person's just a crazy weird being who has weird beliefs, then they might have listened to the pop culture, then maybe they didn't. Who knows? We got to figure that out. Because to assume an entire culture believes one thing is to assume people are individuals. But anyway, so I tried to figure out a definition of pain, and pain is it's either separation or threat of separation. I think that's like the common denominator. Because so what if a stake goes through your arm? Well, what is the pain telling you? Well, my arm is about to separate from my being. That's not good because that's part of how being operates, and I'm contained in this fleshy vessel. But that's not the only kind of pain. There's also anxiety. What if my wife leaves me? What if my 401k fails? I'm going to die tomorrow from cancer. That's also a type of pain because it increases anxiety. Is that your only motivation? Well, that's a good one because then it keeps you away from that, or maybe thinking about that and trying to find a way to buffer yourself around that. Does that make sense?
That has to be part of your motivation anyway.
Yeah, but you have to recognize it too because it's part of life and it's part of the end of life specifically.
So so some people are highly motivated just because they're interested in something.
Yeah.
And so what's the difference in someone's mentality if the only motivation is pain, or they're genuinely engaged and interested in stuff and they're motivated? That, I guess there's a positive and negative motivation.
The positive one that's the Occidental type of religion. That's like very Western. It's the idea. This is where you get to the masculine and the feminine, like in mass meaning. It's something you reach for, and it's something that God promises. If you reach for this, I'll reward you. But if you don't do this, the world will have you, and we'll see what that looks like. And the opposite of that is very much Eastern. It's the matriarchal mother of sacrifice and all their deities, saying you must do something to appease the earth. You must do something. You must sacrifice to appease the earth. So you give yourself a little pain to prevent the ultimate pain. That's like the matriarchal deity structure of like a lot of the Eastern beliefs. So one reaches for something, one's trying to prevent something. But the depths of hell are almost unlimited. But it seems like you need to do certain things specifically to keep life. So the difference in motivation is maybe moving forward into the future properly, as opposed to trying to hide in a cave and never exploring, because one leads to stagnation. Things will never change because you're always just trying to stay above water. Where if you have a place to go, something to reach for, sky's the limit on that. You'll even forget about your own death for a reason of trying to make the world a better place, or feed starving children, or whatever that looks like. But you have to believe that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it was like, I was wondering about that a lot because I was just, that seemed to be my only motivation, is just like, I only did things I had to do. And then anything else was free time where I kind of just was wasting away. And that would be like your pain being your only motivator,
Yeah.
you think. And then so recently I've been getting excited about projects and all this stuff, and I feel like it's its own motivator.
It is.
Or whatever.
That's a good way to look at it. You're doing a project right now, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. This type of shit I'm excited about doing it.
Well, the negative sense of pain, I would say 9 out of 10 times comes from a sense of affluence. The reason why it comes from a sense of affluence is all of your needs are met. And so if your needs are met from day one, like when you were born, you have no idea what happens when you don't have them. And so we lose electricity in our entire country. What do you think will happen?
Panic.
Yeah, that's not good.
Fear.
Exactly. So you don't even know properly, first off, how to appreciate it. Second, how to deal with it if you don't have it.
And so there's certain things people have become like spoiled with when it comes to electricity, but then there's certain things they've become 100% dependent on because of it.
Yeah.
So if it might also, people could die if maybe they got health concerns, this and that and the other. Like, who knows? Our whole civilization depends on these type of things, and it's not like, if you take a step back and look at it, it's not organic. It's weird.
It's our own.
It's weird.
It's our. It's like a cultural construct. I hate using that term, but that sounds about right. And it is. Electricity is roughly modern and cultural and a technology, and it's a tool we use. So the question is, what kind of structure do we need to build to make sure people act properly, even if we lose electricity? And this is, oh my gosh, I can't remember the person. It wasn't Dostoevsky, Tolstoy. I don't know. One of those guys said that the Christian nation was based on a moral population. Like, even if we lose these things, how do we act properly anyway to prevent anarchy? That's the, seeing your neighbor as, loving your neighbor as yourself, even if we are starving to death. Which one of those?
Which is when people usually turn.
When your needs aren't met.
Yeah, when people usually turn pretty disgusting.
Another way that binds humans sometimes, but not all the time, is when your needs aren't met and you're trying to meet that factor. Well, maybe you work together so that way you both can hunt the same buffalo and kill it and eat it and be fine. Because you're in a place of want right then. And that'll help you proactively.
So do you think people that are like super evil and treat other people horribly, murderers and this and that, have had the psychological needs not met to the point where they went insane?
We need definitions. What is evil?
Harming someone with intent to harm them.
Well, what if a person's beating my child? Would it be evil if I beat them? Definitions are important. Context is important too.
Yeah, because you're embracing that evil, because you become a monster too.
Sort of.
That would explain why you did that.
Yeah, but it's a little different though. It's controlled. It's like the
protective.
Like the Beauty and the Beast thing.
It's to protect somebody.
Yeah, okay. I'm using properly.
Yeah.
And this is like Jordan Peterson said a lot of great things.
But then that's where you see on like movies and stuff where the antagonist like gets the villain and kills him. But then you see him turn like real. Then you see his face turn, and then he keeps getting pleasure out of kicking the body and stuff. It's like now he's becoming evil.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Too far. Yeah, there's
that.
I use this when teaching self-defense classes. I just taught one this past Saturday, and I told the kids, and I think they were all under like 16. They had to have been, so 13 or 16, down to like 7. And I said, if you are incapable of violence, you are absolutely at the mercy of anybody who is. So you need to be ready to use that. You need to be ready, and you need to think about this, because if you think about it right when you finally get into that confrontation, it's too late. They already got you. The sneak attack psychological blow they'll do to your brain over and over again. Why did I get hit? I'm a nice person. I don't understand what's going on. I shouldn't be in a fight, but I don't. And you'll just keep getting hit until you're on the floor, and that's when it's too late. So you should be understanding of the world. That's like non-naivety. So yeah, you can. So we're on the definition of evil. Violence is sometimes necessary to protect what is good. That's like the spirit of goodness.
Okay, so maybe the definition of evil is deriving pleasure from harming another person. Because even if you're defending, and I would, if someone was going to kill my family and then I went and killed them, I would probably derive pleasure in that. But would that maybe be the point where I would be turning evil?
Well, it's
myself.
And the pleasure.
That's a weird thing. I've actually never really thought about it like that.
Yeah, the pleasure is that it'd be vengeance, and vengeance is never satisfied. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. That's scriptural. Because what are you going to do then with all the hate you had? And this is also
does it go away?
No, it doesn't. It never does. You'll figure out another way to use that somewhere, and then unless you need a way to get rid of that anger and that tension in your heart. That's why
So that's not going away when you exact your revenge on this person that did this horrible thing, and you finally they get what they deserve, whether the fucking cops see or not. Like on a taxi driver, when he's like I'm taking this into my own hands. Because none of these cops are doing nothing, man. I'm gonna go in there. Do you think his hate went away after he killed that? Did you know what I mean in the movie? Like he goes up and there's
which movie we're talking about?
Taxi Driver.
Oh,
well, so there's this prostitute, and then there's
I've seen
the pimp and so he rescued the girl from the pimp, and he shot him
Yep, shot in the hand.
did it
first.
himself because the
rough.
cops wouldn't get involved, and he's like, so if he like, so vengeance could be seeking vengeance could have you could derive pleasure in that. So vengeance would be the same.
He'd be like Batman.
It's like anything that's not protecting. If we're talking about violent behavior,
That sounds about right. Anything that does not help. Well, then we get into utilitarianism. You got to be careful with that, and pragmatism. Human life flourishing. That was Sam Harris's big thing when he's like, "That's the ultimate goal," and science can prove this. But really, do we want human life to flourish? Well,
what is humanitarianism and pragmatism?
So utilitarianism means means happiness is the ultimate goal. So the more, if more people could be happy here on choice A versus choice B, we choose choice A, even if it means slaughtering all of choice B. That's not always right because happiness is fleeting, and not everybody's happy all the time.
For the better good of the whole.
Yeah, not only the good, but the pleasure of the whole.
Is that what you would say?
Yeah, that's utilitarianism. And pragmatism is literally just that. It's logical. Well, we're trying to build a better humanity. Let's euthanize everybody with Down syndrome. That's eugenics, and you disregard the spirit of life itself when you start picking and choosing who gets to live and who doesn't.
I think it was when you were on last time. I said, not everyone should have children, man. What if you're like schizophrenic and you have like 5 kids and shit like that?
How'd that happen? That's a story.
Well, I'm just proposing an idea. But
yeah.
Then afterwards, you said something like that, like if you head towards that direction in your head, and you keep going, you get towards eugenics, and basically the Nazis and all that shit.
Yeah, that's the direction it'll take you.
And we also talked about violence, and it seems like certain things are necessary to a degree, and when you go too far down any one path, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
They're Maps of Meaning is it's a great read. It took I can usually burn through a book in like a day or two. This one took me about 2 or 3 months.
I can't believe you read that book.
So much information here, but he makes a lot of great cases in the book, and he quotes Nietzsche properly quite a few times. But he puts all of reality into the combination of the there's a certain section in the book where he puts reality into there's the unknown, the known, and the knower. And the knower has to balance between the two. Because if you already know everything or think you already know everything, you are Satan. Because I already know what's necessary in life. And you're also unteachable. There's no explored territory. There's no adventure. It's also stagnation. That's conservatism.
You're Satan.
If you already know everything. That's why when you approach another person, you come as a little child. Christ said this, and you come as a little child trying to learn, or approach the kingdom of heaven as a child. You try to learn, and as you learn, then you can bounce off what you know from the known, as you go into the unknown. Does that make sense? Okay.
But you're saying you're Satan because you know everything.
Well, the whole concept of the devil is I don't need anything. I don't subject myself to any kind of hierarchy. Like I am all there is. That's kind of like this. Yes, it is. It is just that. It's the highest angel who thought he was more beautiful than God. But the thing about Christ is he subjects himself to God and to life itself.
So if you walk through life saying like, dude, I don't need shit from no one. I got this.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I got this.
You flick the lights on.
Fuck all you. I'll survive. No one ever needed to give me anything. I earned it myself.
And that's ignorant.
Because
you didn't build your car out of the metal you mined from the ground and all this other stuff. Everyone here that can hear this is heavily reliant on other people, whether you like it or not. If you say different, you're just lying to yourself. And that's where it is. That's exactly what it is. It's lying to yourself, saying that I've done everything myself, even though you're a created being. And that's Satan. That's the spirit of the devil.
So I've had that attitude in the past for extended periods of time. That's why I asked that question. What does that say about during those times when I had that attitude, what would that say about my character?
Well, you're willfully blind and you were also a young man. I mean, we, as you know, this is my fourth decade, and you're in your 30s, I'm guessing, and there's a time where you are your strongest. Your body heals itself regardless of what you consume, very well, and you're it's just the nature of men and being outgoing more so. And then after a while, when you see the world, or at least pay attention to it, you understand, wow, yeah, I am kind of reliant on a lot of things that are not myself. And if like any little piece of this was actually taken away, I would suffer terribly and have no idea where to go from here. That's a young man's philosophy. That's why what is the saying? When you're young, you're a Democrat. When you're older, you're a conservative. Something like that. That's usually the political, because you harness onto the passion when you're younger.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, the passion makes you, it's something to go with. Like, why wouldn't I go with what I feel? What I feel seems right. Well, sometimes not, because if you're going to build a proper structure to have life, like kids come up, you want to stay with your wife, even if you are tempted on how you feel. That's what we know.
So the concept of morality and existing in society, I came up with this, is probably what it is, but I was thinking the one day that morality is, and this talking about what we talked about earlier, with not being dependent on anything. Morality comes into play when there's something outside of the individual guiding it how to interact with other individuals. That's when morality comes into place. Otherwise, if it's just internal, so if it's just internal, whatever you do in your own house or think in your own head, it doesn't matter.
Sort of.
Well, I'm just saying for this talking point,
okay.
It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, just do it. And then so when you have multiple individuals, you can't act that way because you'll hurt each other.
Yeah.
And so morality is the thing outside of those people that says this is how you need to be in order to be whatever, kind and respectful to each other. So anyway, so would you say that's where the Bible and Christianity would come into play?
Oh, man.
Is that their purpose?
I'm going to read you from Nietzsche. Yes, and for a couple of reasons. The first one being the Bible and Scripture and knowledge itself was something that was so coveted when we came over here to the new country. People were putting pieces of the Bible and Scripture on their plows as they were plowing. The idea behind knowledge itself was that it was supposed to make you live better, like a person live better, morally and economically, and every way you could possibly think of. That's the whole point of knowledge. Now, knowledge, it's over there on the phone. I can get anything I want to whenever I want. How spoiled is that? So you're talking about work, the I do everything myself. Just to at least hammer that point a little bit, even if you were in the woods by yourself, naked with a spear and surviving for years, you still didn't make the animals. You still didn't grow the trees. You're still reliant on so much else outside of yourself. It's ridiculous. So morality kind of naturally has to go out because you're interacting with
some
reality.
Alan Watts shit.
Oh, jeez, yeah. But that's true, right? You didn't make all this stuff. You're just kind of in the middle of it.
I actually never even saw it that way. Because to me, it's like I carved this stick into a spike. Blah, 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 blah,
Who made
blah,
the stick,
blah.
though? Who gave you your hands? Yeah. This is Art Lindsley. We're reading this book called Love is the Ultimate Apologetics for the C.S. Lewis Institute, and he says, in the Bible, it looks like the garden was not made for man, but man was made for the garden. The garden was there first, and then God made man and put him in there, and that's his perfect environment, because he made man for that environment. So that was first. So you're kind of not subject to the whims of it, but you're supposed to pay attention to it, and it's for you, but you were made for it. Does that make sense?
So it's both. It's like both of them. It needs you, however you could say that and make sense.
It
and
needs you to tend
it.
to it. It needs you to tend to it to make it a beautiful place.
So you help it. You help your environment. It's hard to say because I can't say it. It is a specific thing, but you're as necessary for your own environment as it is for you. Is that what you're saying?
The environment was made for you, but you have to tend to it. That's be fruitful and multiply were the two commands given to man before he fell in a natural sin. So be productive, make the garden better, and then have kids. Those are the two paradigms that were given to man. And if you do both those things properly and then have the continuation of the species, you tend to grow up mature with a sense of community. That's been historically the case. So I'm going to read you from Nietzsche, and this is from Maps of Meaning, talking about Christianity. And the other thing is, going back to it, the Bible was one of the binding books that everybody read because everybody wanted to get better and everyone wanted to have knowledge. And that's off of the back of, if you ever read Fox's Book of Martyrs, the terrible things the Catholics did to the Protestants for actually just wanting to read Scripture and study it.
Because back then the Catholics didn't let anyone but the head guy read.
Yeah, and he read it in
the
Latin
Bible. He read it in a language they didn't understand. So why would they keep all that from them? Because so they could control them and use Catholicism So they use Catholicism basically just to herd the people like sheep.
And it denies the dignity of a human worth if you deny them knowledge to live properly. Instead, you want to help them. But there's no money in that. There's no control in that. There's no power in that. Believe the Catholic Church because we know the Word of God. Believe vaccines work because we tell you they do. It's the same kind of rhyme. It's the higher up that's in control of information. Like when the printing press came out, they didn't want Bibles printed. They really did not.
Yeah, that's a whole... I know a lot about that situation too. And it's just weird how they controlled the narrative.
Controlling the narrative. That's existed for so long, dude. It's so interesting.
I didn't even want to say that.
I know, but it's relevant.
But that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. So even though, just real quick,
that's all right.
Even though they were using something sort of like some offshoot of Christianity, I don't even know what your thoughts are about Catholicism, but it's close enough. So even if they were using something technically good, they were exploiting the people.
Yeah, there's a little bit of truth in what they were saying. So
the religions are not, they're not like untouchable. Like they can be corrupt as well.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Anytime anything becomes corporate, corruption enters right away. The Christians are the best and the worst representatives of following Christ on earth. Anytime a church gets anywhere big where money's involved, it's a big
difference.
Yeah, it just enters. It's just that you have to pay people. You have to take. Some people are never going to be happy with the decisions you make because we also have this self-centeredness of us. Like, I am worth more, maybe more than I think, and more than they're giving me, and they're paying that other person more than me, and I am way more spiritual than them, and I do. You get this martyr complex to it. There's a whole bunch of stuff that can go on inside of a church. Try not to do that. That's the point. Try not to do that. And you aim at teaching people Scripture. This is you serve God or man, right? This is something that Christ taught. You can either serve God or money. If you aim toward money as being your biggest thing, everything falls. But if you aim toward doing the right thing, teaching people to live better out of Scripture that binds everybody together, that has bound everybody together in this country since its dawn, money will come if it needs to. It just does. People hear your message, you're like, I support this. I like the message you hear. Here, keep going. That's where the tithing will just come, and that's the first church as well, where everyone shared everything because this message sounds good. So what happens if you take that away? And then this is Nietzsche. When one gives up the Christian belief, for example, one thereby deprives oneself of the right to Christian morality. If Christianity is a system, a consistently thought out and complete view of things, if one breaks out of its fundamental idea, the belief in God, one thereby breaks the whole thing to pieces. One has nothing of any consequence left in one's hands. Christianity presupposes that man does not know, cannot know what is good for him and what is evil. He believes in God, who alone knows. Christian morality is a command. Its origin is transcendental. It is beyond all criticism, all rights to criticize. It possesses truth only if God is truth. It stands or falls with the belief in God. If modern Westerners really do believe they know, of their own accord, intuitively, what is good and evil, if they consequently think they no longer need Christianity as a guarantee of morality, that is merely the consequence of the ascendancy of Christian evaluation and an expression of the strength and depth of this ascendancy, so that the origin of modern morality has been forgotten, so that the highly conditional nature of its right to exist is no longer felt. So he's talking about the evolution of Christianity, which you can get to with affluence. You have this great system that keeps us flourishing better than any system has ever done in our American history, any history ever made. And we want to destroy that because we evolved to affluence. Like, we don't even know what we have. And the evolution of, being right here and forgetting what's down there is the system just topples over. And that's the Tower of Babel as well. Because the tower gets so big, you forget what's down there, and you forget to pay attention to it, and then your base crumbles, and the whole thing topples down. And that's Nietzsche.
That's the Tower of Babel is like modern day version would be something getting too corporate, basically.
Yeah, you forget what you were supposed to do to begin with. Like, what was your intent? Well, to sell bikes. Now you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Oh, we just want to look good.
I swear, Harley at certain point of the year will overproduce for the purpose of the stock market, not even to sell the fucking bikes.
Yeah, I can see that. You want to make it look like you have a lot of potential.
That's crazy to think about, though. I bet other companies do that and hire whatever. I bet other companies do it more.
Well, some of the actually a lot, if not all, the major farm systems are paid to throw out food, because heaven forbid we have an abundance and then it's cheap. Then they can't sell it for as much as they do.
I haven't actually thought about it from that perspective.
Yeah,
Could you imagine like people growing food and throwing it out, and growing food and throwing it out, and there's other people that are starving.
This is a thing that happens.
Oh, I can imagine. No,
it's laughable.
A light bulb just went off in my head when you said that. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God. I guarantee shit like that. Was that what happened in communism?
Oh no, that communism, they believe the lie. They believe that that's different. We'll go there in a minute. So they're So in
podcast, it'll be 8 hours into it. And the other thing about communism is
we'll go into it for maybe an hour and then get from there. So the thing about there was this guy who wrote a book, and he was actually quoted on MSNBC, I think, not too recently, but he wrote a book called The Overpopulation Bomb. And it basically said that, the world's going to get overpopulated, we're going to run out of food. And then he's like, see, we're out of food, we're running out of food, resources are scarce. He's been proven wrong so many times it's also laughable. We make plenty of food in this planet, actually way more, and it's way cheaper. And sugar's like 25 times cheaper than it used to be like 50 years ago. It's ridiculous cheap. Food is ridiculous cheap to make, to produce, to sell, and to drive to people and to get to people. So is water. But that's not the point. That's not the problem. The problem is power. I'm not going to give food to that country. Or I'm going to prevent food from getting to that country.
For this other weird reason.
For maybe political reason. Maybe it's unforgiveness from past bloodshed. That kind of thing. Or maybe I'm just going to, pay the farmers to throw it out so that way I can make more money on it and charge more for milk. That kind of thing.
Well, like that's exactly what they did with the diamonds.
I'm not sure about that one. I know about food, but I haven't researched diamonds.
The blood diamonds.
Blood diamonds?
Yeah, they dig diamonds up and just stick them in a big fucking storage room, and then that drives up the price of the other diamonds that they decide to sell.
Yeah,
and they like force people to. I forget. It was a movie I saw.
Oh, a movie?
Yeah, and they like fucking whatever. Look it up if you don't. But it was just like the same concept you're saying, like wasting stuff to make the price go up.
It's like forced scarcity. We make plenty of food in this nation. So that's what's going on here. And people believe the negative. Because, again, the negative, when you're in a sense of affluence, I don't know how to deal with this and send you into panic. I'm going to listen to the strong voice that does. And this is one of Peterson's lectures where he talked about... I forgot what he talked about. Doesn't matter. But it was a long lecture, and what I got out of it is chaotic nihilism will always bend the knee to totalitarian certainty. And that seems right. Nobody has any idea what to do or any point of reference. If a strong voice shows up, you're going to follow that. Even if it's not right, you'll still follow it anyway. Because it's a strong voice, and it's a structured voice, and it's a piece of language, and a lot of reasons.
If you don't know, if you can't tell yourself whether what you think is right or not, you know what I mean, then someone else is speaking with confidence.
Yeah.
You know, like
they
that's
might
pretty.
smack you around a bit.
It's not like you're really trying it. It's just kind of the path of least resistance.
Well,
it wouldn't be like they're real excited about this guy's ideas. It's just like drifting.
Everyone's kind of doing that, so I guess we should do it too. That's the safety of the herd and safety of crowds. Frederick Douglass said something like, an educated man is unfit to be a slave. And that's one of the reasons why people will control information, because heaven forbid everyone's educated and makes the proper choice, that we can't tell them what to do, what to go for, and what to glorify.
Yeah.
So what is evil? What is good? We could start with that.
It's something. It has something to do with yourself and not other people. Whatever the definition of evil is, it starts there. Like I like to come up with these definitions that make sense to me.
Oh yeah, dude.
A lot of times, like the word God, like I don't know what someone means when they say that, so I have to make up some kind of definition. So evil, it seems like it starts with being concerned about yourself.
Internal as opposed to external. And this takes more priority than this.
Yeah.
Something like that, right?
So would that also be like, so would a person that's introverted be more prone to that, or neurotic?
Well, actually, you're not incorrect, and that's because women in general are more neurotic statistically than men, and they think about themselves, and maybe they should, because they have literally life inside of them. So they're the gatekeepers of life, if you want to think about it that way. And there's a reason they should be, but that doesn't mean you neglect reality. It doesn't mean you won't go totally in focus. You're talking about people that think only about themselves if they were evil. Well, there are sociopaths.
Or if that's where it starts.
There are sociopaths, and sociopaths can overcome their own issue, but they have to know. They have to know that, like, same reason like you like heroin, but you have to know you shouldn't have it. Same thing. I have to know I have to value people. You can overcome that, and you can make it so you can actually fight your own psychology of being a sociopath or a narcissist. You have to know people are valuable, and you stick with that principle. That's a principle. That's something that guides your life eternally. You can apply in all times and all places, as opposed to a slogan. Sluagarum, battle cry of the dead, like a just do it from Nike. Probably shouldn't apply that to a lot of scenarios. Love your neighbor as yourself, though. That you can. I can't think of a time when
it's not a very helpful thing to say. Just do it.
Yeah, I know. It's like it's totally void of context, like at all. It's
like
terrible.
You're chopping up vegetables for a salad, and like someone else walks in the room, and you're holding the knife. Just do it.
Yeah, that's bad. Have it your way at McDonald's
style,
like or Wendy's, right? Wendy's has been common lately, but have it your way at McDonald's. Well, you didn't make it my way. I'm gonna go back there and make it myself. Yeah, it's probably a bad idea.
Wendy's is like the only one I can handle anymore.
I like Wendy's.
That's an interesting topic. How come? So now that the inflation is insane, fast food is more expensive than a sit down restaurant.
You're paying for time. Really?
I want it right now.
Yeah.
Because when fast food came out originally, it was the point of it was cheap.
Yeah, you get a $5 bill, boom, a meal, and then you go, and it's garbage. You know it is, but it's $5.
So now they know people are gonna buy it regardless. They're fucking addicted, so they charge whatever they want. Because I could not believe the price. I was just swinging through. It was Taco Bell and Wendy's, and I'm like, holy shit, what's going on? And then I could go to Round the Clock Diner and it's cheaper to get a real meal with a cup of coffee.
That's crazy.
I had posted that, but that's nuts.
Huh. Yeah.
That's has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but that's just something that's been on my mind.
It sort of does. So
Addiction.
What are you paying?
That goes back to addiction, I think.
Well, there.
Or impatience.
Schultz and Itzen. I bought the 3 Gulag Archipelago volumes. So I'm going to read them all. But he makes the point. He's like he draws this picture, right, of 4 or 5 you're in a cell. The guard throws 1 potato to all of you, and he does this every day. You're going to watch 2 people in there starve to death. Do you have time to think about God and morality? And then he flips that. You're a person with a full-time job. You can do whatever you want to, and you choose to waste your time. Do you think about God and morality? He's like, they're both kind of overlapped. They're both, because if you look at our culture, and we're paying for time, we're paying for things we don't need, we're paying for convenience. I just want to go get my food and come back. I don't want to spend time on it. You're paying for time, but if you're paying for time, that's time wasted that you're paying for, because you had to make that money somehow. So they both overlap, and he one of the things he made is
it's more to do with impatience.
Yeah, that's part of it. It's like the what do they call it? The tyranny of the immediate. Like I need, or the unbearable present. That's how Jordan Peterson puts it. It's like, because we're always moving forward toward what? Well, the waterfall maybe, but you're always moving forward. So we gotta go. We gotta keep going. We gotta progress. What are we paying for? But Solzhenitsyn makes that case, like when they're overlapped. He's like, whatever you were before you were in that mess, you're going to be more so when you're in it. So the people that were moral, they would, if they really had a moral heart, they would give the food away to the point of their death. If you were really cutthroat, you would fight other people for that potato. Same thing in the
under extreme circumstances.
They become more.
They become more. It's not like, so you're saying the moral people don't become insanely corrupt during those times, whereas they would become more moral.
Well, it depends what your base is. Like what do you stand on? What gives you value? Is it just you being not in hunger every day, not in pain every day, or is it something greater than that? So like where's your aim? Where are you going with that? That's the thing he tried to point out there. Like, you need a basis that's beyond your immediate needs.
So it's sounding like where I've had points in time where I would live, and it's like I had to go to work to have the house. Other than that, that was my only thing.
At least you had that. Seriously, what would you do? You'd wallow. Like we need men, especially. We need something to do.
That's never been something I ever had to think about my whole life. Like not working. I was a workaholic. I was everything-aholic. But so there were those points where I'd be working 65 hours a week. Shit like that. So I always had work ethic, but I had no other drive other than that, because that was survival.
Okay.
And so nothing else. And so what's my point? So would that lifestyle be a side effect of something immoral or evil or whatever you're trying? You know what I mean? Because you have no motivation
besides meeting your immediate needs.
Would that be a side effect of some other thing?
Well, then you measure culture in there as well, because culture, with the American dream, you work so long, then you retire at 65, and life is just blissful after that. Something like that. That's what the American dream is, or at least it used to be. I don't even know what it is these days anymore. Do whatever's right now. That seems to be more of a case these days.
Yeah, pretty much.
So your work ethic.
But that thought that there's going to be this magical time where now you did it.
Yeah, that's it. I've achieved something.
And that never happens.
No, actually, you should never stop working, really. You just work for different things. You get yourself stable, and then you go out and maybe help somebody else that isn't.
Well, I see there's like different phases in life.
Yeah.
And there's times where you're under turmoil. There's times where you're peaceful or whatever the fuck. There's blah, 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 blah. You hang out. You know, there's these scenes in life. You were hanging out with these people in this place, and then a couple years later, you're doing this or whatever. And when as you get older, it keeps doing that. Like I took care of my grandma till she was 98 and died. And it was like the last couple years, like she couldn't do nothing. And I would go help her. And I watched her. It was not depressing because she was at that stage of her life. I planted a flower in the front yard, and that one flower, it was like weeks. She would just look at the flower and be happy. So when you get old towards that time, little tiny things are going to bring you joy, and you're going to be rested and peaceful because you're tired.
Yeah, the flesh.
So I don't see, at least when I had that experience, I saw a different outlook on life that really changed me, because I'm like, oh, it's not going to be that bad, man. It's not going to be that bad like I'm thinking it will. It's not going to be like super great, like, oh, I'm dying. But it's not going to...
I can't wait. Oh, let's go.
It's not going to be like I think people make it sound. But maybe that depends on you.
Well, it depends where she was also spiritually. There's the sting of death, and you're taught to be afraid of death for a very long time, and death is the unknown. A guy at my work makes this case very clear. He's like, what happens after life? You don't know. So your best thing to do is make heaven here. But with that philosophy, he's one of the most miserable people that people interact with. Because he doesn't believe, and anybody can know the afterthought. Nobody can know. That goes back to the devil mentality we were talking about before. He already knows everything.
So there's this thing you keep bringing up about something to live for outside of yourself that goes on after you die. Like basically you're talking about children, but it could be something else. Is that what you're talking about? Like you keep bringing that up. And it's like, so if you're just like this guy's saying, if you're just living for, and you're like, I don't know what's going to happen after I'm gone, you're saying that made this person miserable in life. Is that, could you translate that to the kids thing?
Yeah, well, kids are part of it. And that's in the Psalms, blessed is the man whose quiver is full, because you're basically throwing yourself into the future, because part of you is etched onto them. I could see this in my kids. Whether they like it or not, they're going to say and do, you have a daughter, right? So things that are part of you that you hear them say, wow, that's me. Like it'll just show up. That we're not precisely record and playback machines, but we try to memorize patterns of the people we look up to. They have no choice. They're going to look up to you. You're part of them. That's just how kids and adults work.
So something looking up to you for direction, is that maybe the thing that makes you less miserable?
Part of it, because then you're taking care of something that goes beyond yourself. That's parenting. That's one big part of it. That's a big part of it, because that's the flesh is like mending the earth with the transcendent.
So does parenting bring you to like a new plateau of levels of enjoyment?
Yeah. Well,
that you wouldn't even know about otherwise? Like, is there like a plateau? Like some people like live their whole life and never even know about this special feeling.
Well, some people want it and can't get it. Some people want to have kids and they can't get them.
And so, like, what's that? You know?
Well, it doesn't stop with kids, and we'll put parenting over here for a minute.
All right.
So the idea is transcendent values, things, and if you pay attention to life, you can see spirits, and you can see demons, and you can see these things, but you need to think about them and you need to see them. Now, they're unseeable, but they're seen at the same time. Work ethic is a good example. Is work ethic good to produce for all of humanity, for all of eternity?
It's you giving back to what is helping you survive.
Well, work ethic,
and to help other people. If we all help, it's actually everyone pulling together and helping each other, whether or not you want to see it that way. But that's what happened. Because I hear these people like, oh, you're not meant to sit in the office for 8 hours a day. Blah 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 blah. It's like what push-ups. It's like what? Well, these people are like, man wasn't meant to work in a factory 40 hours a week, and they complain, and you hear that, and it's like, what do you want to know what happens if you don't do that? Like, do you want to know what the alternative is? Because I think it's not fun to work long hours or whatever just to work normal, but
If you want a good conversation, ask that person, what do you think we're meant to do? Help me out with that. I want to know what you think. That's a good conversation to have. What do you think we should be doing right now that could still lead to a good life where I am fed, clothed, and can take care of my family? What should I do? Help me out. What does society look like?
there's methods throughout history that were used that didn't turn out so well. And
Yes.
I think I wouldn't. I think what we're doing now is okay.
It's
Maybe
all right.
it needs improvement, but
Oh yeah, that's
to sit there and say like blanket statements like that, and so that's the thing when people know what they hate, but they don't know what they want.
they have no aim.
So, and I talked about that before with you, like the punk rock thing. It's like they know what they're against, but they don't know what they're for,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of blind.
Oh, that's a
So that's
Chesterton quote. I just read it earlier from the other book. It's because you're a constant skeptic. You're even skeptical of your own judgments. So you have nothing to base your judgments off of. You lose your right to hate anything because you even hate what you base your own stuff on. Does that make sense? So at the transcendent part, so work ethic. That seems to be pretty good because if I say I'm going, it's like I say I'm going to do something. I not only do I do it, and if I have a good work ethic, I do it better than you think. So that seems pretty good, right? But maybe I can't make money off of that, so that's where the corruption element might sneak in there. Because if you do too good of a job, well, then that person has to do too good of a job too. Then you're making other people work hard just because you are, and that's the nail sticking up in socialism that gets slammed back down. Because like you're a good heart surgeon. The other heart surgeons who don't do as well as you will just eat you because you're making them look bad, and now they have to work harder. Maybe they don't have that talent. So it's you see but the spirit of work ethic is a good thing because it drives people up. So that's a spirit, and then there's we can see demons. The demon of addiction's one. The demon of addiction that's fed to the culture is a big one. Sugar is a big one. Opioids is a big one that you can just let go into the culture.
I think sugar is the best example, even if you're talking about the worst lethal depths of addiction you could imagine. Sugar is the best example because the person consuming it is not getting high. They're getting extremely hooked, and it happens to everyone. And
Yeah.
so that's a good way of explaining how addiction could happen to some person and they're fucking you over because of it and this and that. It's like almost their brain got hijacked the same way you can't stop eating sugar.
Yeah, and they don't. It's one thing you're in jail and you don't even know it. That's the addiction of the flesh, and that's the addiction of sin. Like I like this. I don't want to stop, even if you know you should. And what is that but a demon inside of you literally controlling your mind? It's controlling your will, even though you know better. That seems about right. That's where the whole biblical thing about they cared more about the meaning of the reason why things happen than they did about the actual details themselves. And because meaning was so important to the people that wrote scripture, they wrote it a certain way. And so many people read it at a flat point in history, and it was spread so well that it actually bound people together. Like the character of Christ and what he lived for and stood for bound people together so much. This is one of the reasons why I can't get away from him, and he will be somebody I follow till I'm at the end of my days. That's okay. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What do you think it is about Christianity? Because to keep bringing that up, and people have thoughts about a lot of things, really, but like, if you have to admit, there's people that read the Bible and the things they say are like almost ridiculous. And then you have a book, it's the interpretations of the reader. But then you have a book that also is what is being described as vital for society to survive. Why wouldn't another book do the same?
Isn't that crazy?
Why that particular book, would you say? I don't know. I couldn't tell you, honestly.
The short answer, this is apologetics.
It's actually something that I'm curious about.
Well, the shorter answer, because I'm not specifically a peer-reviewed New Testament scholar or Old Testament, is it's actually 66 books with 40 authors, so it's a library. And it all points to the same theme. It all points to God's goodness and eventually points to Christ and being God and goodness being personified on earth. And even he met death as we met sin. And so we get to have a relationship together as we live eternally, even past our finite point on this planet. So he also embodied death, even though he did not deserve it. That's part of the trade-off. The reason why the Bible is so important is because it spans thousands of years, but it all has the same theme, and it's hyperlinked. Things point back and forth. Like it's so unheard of for something written that long ago to do what it does. There is no comparison. I have the Gita and the Veda I'm going to read about the Eastern thought, and I also have, oh my gosh, I got the I Ching. That's more Chinese thought and more Okinawan philosophy and stuff like that. I'm going to read through them because I think I should, and I'm going to try to find the common points that also point to the character of Christ and the theme, like the hero story that Joseph Campbell wrote about, and all the myth that ever existed, the things that draw you into movies that make you interested in them, besides the flashiness and all of that the story that makes you interested and grips you. That's the story that's written on our hearts, and it's written in Scripture.
You think, what is that story like? Someone would sacrifice something and sacrifice part of themselves to fulfill a dream or some shit. Like, what are movies usually about? What is the hero story or whatever you're saying that movies always replicate over and over?
Well, it's one.
These kind of themes they have.
I use it as my intro for. Here, I can do self-promotion, right? Bearded Karate Dad. If you look that guy up, he's me. And the intro is Joseph Campbell's hero story. And you start out up here in the normal, and then you have a call to adventure. Maybe it's curiosity. Maybe your house burns down. That's a call to adventure because now you're dealing with the unknown. And you actually go down to hell. And you usually have a guide or somebody who forces you down there. And hell tears you up. But the thing is, what you're holding on to, you or me, has brought you down there. You have to let go of it. And then you come back a changed person and you re-enter society into the normal point as a changed person with a gift. That's the hero story that's etched into everything.
So you go somewhere, so you travel to a place that no one else has and you bring something back.
Pick a movie.
Like so
pick any movie. Pick a movie. Hopefully.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh my gosh, that one's just insane, but you can still have that there.
It come back with this crazy story.
Yes. So he had the call to adventure, and his character was not the best. But
he definitely had the call to adventure,
and he experienced it, and he wrote about what he saw.
No one else was going to do that crazy shit.
From a psychological perspective, from an affluent perspective, from the drug-induced perspective, and he comes back changed. And actually, I read the book. What he wrote at the end is the
buffalo
something about the wave that started from the east, went all the way to California, and then crashed back when dealing with drugs and politics. How it went back and forth and just splashed. It was really poetic, believe it or not, and that all came from that. And he came back changed.
I know the quote, but I don't remember. I can't recall it.
Me neither.
Right now.
But it's been like 20 years since I've seen that movie, so.
But yeah, so that's the point of most any movie.
Pick another movie.
Unless it's some weird fucking art film that has no point.
Well, that's where you look at it, you throw up, and you're like, I didn't get anything out of that, and that was very disturbing to watch. And that's when and there's such a thing as a good tragedy. That means things bad happen in the end, but you think, you know what, that's closure. And the Terminal List with Chris Pratt's a good modern version of that. If you haven't seen that, it's worth watching. Don't watch it with kids. Holy crap, there's some graphic stuff in it. But it's about this seal that gets roughly framed. And you can't tell if he's crazy for like 3 episodes, and they're like an hour and a half long each, or if he actually was, because he has a brain tumor. And sometimes he hears and sees things, and he goes back into his memory. Like memories and reality cross over. And you're like, maybe he is crazy and shot his wife and kids. I'm not sure. It does a great job of guessing, and the end is a tragic end. But it's good to watch. It's like I got fulfillment out of that, like that kind of feeling. So you pick a
like Die Hard.
Die Hard. So he went in the first one.
Yeah.
So he goes into the building with the assumption that he wants to kind of make up with his wife. Definitely goes into hell with all the stuff that went on there. And he comes back a changed person, seeing what he'll do for his wife and for other people. And because the cops weren't believing him, he has to do things himself, and he actually gets to find out what he's made of. And he goes back in society, a tried and true person. That's the hero story. It's the same thing.
They should have had you do the trailer
What?
for the film. People would be like, "Holy shit, I'm going to see that."
Yo, Dante's Inferno. The trailer for that game is like the embodiment of it, at least the first part of it. And I had this on one of the videos on my channel. It's like he sees Beatrice, and it's not the poetry. It's the video game. He sees Beatrice, and like Satan literally reaches up and grabs her and pulls her down, and he just jumps into hell after. It's like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. So,
I think I have the.
Ain't no sunshine anymore. I tried posting it, but I got like the video got taken down because that song is not allowed to be played. Like if I sing it right now, this video might come down. That's how strict they are with it.
It's weird. I'll get a lot of times it'll say copyright complaint or some shit, and it doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Oftentimes they'll keep it up there. I think you can't.
What are you
monetize.
saying they actually took it off?
Yes, they wouldn't be posted because I played that song. That's copyrighted by them. So that's the hero story, and that's literally pointing toward Christ.
You were just waiting for Die Hard. Fear and Loathing, you're like, oh my god.
Well, it is there, but it's like people that watch Fear and Loathing are not going to get any kind of spiritual revelation.
I got a spiritual revelation as when I watched it.
Sort of. So and this is actually a
Starship Troopers.
This is a.
I could go on for like an hour.
And I can point it out to you. If you say the name, and it takes me 5 minutes to unpack it. So but the point, and Christ said this: "Greater love is no man than to give his life for another." So that's something. If you want to know why it's self-sacrifice might be valued highly, well, it's in Scripture. Christ said it. That seems to be a good reason. Otherwise, you're kind of, if there's no reason, no life after death, no. Maybe you believe in karma. Who knows? Maybe that's a good reason, but it seems shallow, and you're forgotten about.
And that's why you're saying faith. So holy shit! So could faith be? No, I'm just thinking like, well, because grew up hearing these words and shit. Like my whole life, grew up in like Christian, but like fundamentalism. Yeah. So I grew up with these words, and I'm just now thinking like what that could have meant that whole time. So it's like faith is like these people can't seem to cooperate unless they follow this shit we wrote for some reason. Who knows? So they're gonna have to put some faith into this, or we're not going nowhere.
Yeah, it's like faith.
That to me I just thought of that as like a definition to the word, even though it's just a rambling.
Well, faith is belief in things unseen, and so first off, you go back to the first disciples / apostles of Christ. They all died alone, and they all died separately, and they died painfully. Why would somebody do that if they're doing it for a lie? Well, maybe there's something worthy about that story, and then you could fast forward to the Constitution. What has kept our country alive for so long, as opposed to every other country that's ever existed? Well, maybe we should look into that. And then you have our vice president.
Our country?
Yeah, America itself.
We've not been around that long.
We haven't been, but I think the average life of a constitution is less than 20 years. Ours has been around for 300 or something, yeah. 200 something.
Oh, that's a long... Go on with what you're saying.
Oh, well, then you have the danger of it is, and this is Adam being silent in the garden while Eve takes the apple and listens to the all-knower Satan. When you have somebody like our vice president say, we are endowed with liberty and the pursuit of happiness. We are endowed with rights for liberty and the pursuit of happiness. She did not say our creator, and she did not say life. We are endowed by our creator for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. She did that speech at the 50th anniversary of Roe versus Wade. She got rid of the creator. She got rid of life. So she's blaspheming the Constitution. They don't even know what they're doing, but they do at the same time. It's so frustrating. So you have to live outside of that, but you have to pay attention to it. I think, anyway.
And that's not, I guess that's not something everyone can do.
Yes, you
That's
can.
interesting to think of as the concept of Christianity, because that is not what someone would normally think. But I'm in some way, I'm trying to rationalize something that's not really meant to be rationalized, but it's starting to make a little more sense, I think. That concept, because growing up, it's like this happened and this is wrong and this is wrong.
Well, here's the
and
thing
it's
about
like that doesn't tell you much, man. Really.
well, sort of, you can trace it back to the origins of it. So there's something about articulation, about speaking things that you can't really see. Right, that's kind of what we do in the abstract. I'm reverse mind reading you. I say words, pictures come in your head, something like that.
Yeah.
And that like if so, we took the concept of demon and spirits and played with that for a little bit. If you articulate a spirit, what work ethic looks like, you give people a template of goodness. Does that make sense? So here's how you do your job. Here's how you do it even better. This is the expectation. So that's you're articulating a spirit. If you articulate a demon, it goes away. So you have a problem you're wrestling with. Like, I think a couple episodes ago I said I had an issue. It was my own issue against a person who was very important to me. What I did, because I got this idea from Abraham Lincoln, is I wrote a letter to them. I never sent it. But after I wrote that letter, all feeling of like resentment, guilt, bitterness, waste, it just went away. Every time I think about it, it's just like, meh. It goes away.
You got it out of your head.
And that's all the way back to Genesis. Like in the God said, "Let there be light," and the darkness didn't understand it, because light is just the ability to perceive. So if you perceive a spirit and it goes in the right direction, it's good and gives you a template for the future. If you articulate a demon, something that's casting you off, it tends to lose its power and its pull on you. I'm addicted to sugar. I need to eat less. I'm going to write down how much I eat. Maybe that'll help me. And that's statistically proven to help people with smoking. Hashtag how many cigarettes you smoke a day. Like, wow, I'm putting all that in my body? That's crazy. And then you'll start smoking less.
So you think a lot of addiction problems can be just not paying attention?
That's
And then
one way.
shit just starts escalating and you're still not paying attention and then you're like, well, fuck, here I am.
Well, not paying attention is one of the greatest. Well, it's apathy. Apathy is the opposite of love. Because at least if you hate somebody, you have a relationship with them. Apathy is just let something die. An abusive parent will still feed the child, even though he abuses them. But an apathetic one will just let him starve to death in his crib. Like at least one has a relationship. Know what I mean? So not paying attention is the same thing as not caring. So if you're not paying attention to yourself, well, how can you love your neighbor as yourself if you don't apply it here? Because you, Brother Aaron, are the combination of the transcendent abstract and the fleshy material. And that's the knower part of life. I think about this stuff when I drive a forklift all day.
I'm sure that's what most people do.
Yeah, everyone does this.
Yeah.
So we meant to talk about addiction. I think we talked about it.
Yeah, addiction was going to be a good thing to talk about, but I think it's almost the wrong.
We got to start somewhere.
I think addiction's almost like you could just talk about the actual cause and spend more time talking about that.
Well, that was
Because when you just say addiction, you start getting into like numbers and how long they stopped and how much they were doing, and it's like that's not the fucking point. That's not the point. So we kind of hit on it with like personal desires and this and that and the other, and I think that's what it comes down to is when you start thinking differently, these addictions will just kind of start going away.
Well, if you think about the concept of love is a lot of elements. It's not just the immediate. It's also the past and it's also the future. So the immediate's the one like, I love my car, or I love my friends, or I love talking, things. But does that last forever? Has it always lasted? So love also comes with the thing that makes love able to be had is almost like a cup. You need a sense of duty to others, especially duty. You're like the big transgender thing going on. If you're biologically this gender, it's your duty to act that out. That's your part, and you should. And your body will tell you to do this for the most part, barring abstractions, barring genetic things that just happen, and those are such a minute part. It's definitely not part of the whole, but it's your duty as a whatever role you have, whatever hat you have or wear, as a father, as a worker, to fulfill that role to its utmost. And that's the duty part of love.
And how do you understand what your role is?
Well, we have a book. Begins with a B.
But how do you understand what your role is, like, you're compared to your environment?
Well,
Everybody's got a different role.
Well, sure. So you measure based on how a human should interact with reality. That's the Bible can kind of tell you that. Then you have to measure it with cultural practices too. Then you have to measure your culture based on what direction not even human flourishing, what direction a transcendent desire for humanity might go. That's a complex way of saying it. But Christ gives you answer to all these questions. What should you do?
Alan Watts said he was talking about people saying this was put on me. This isn't my responsibility. This happened to me. And then he said at the end he quoted, "What is put on you saves you."
Yeah. Well,
that's I thought of it differently when I first heard it, but that would be taking on your role.
Yeah.
Because it's put on you and you're not necessarily choosing it. Is that like, obviously it's not 100% either way. Like you choose things as well, but.
Well, it's like the garden. It's there. We should tend to it, lest it turn into a jungle and then eats us. Something like that. Roles and responsibilities, they're heavy, man. And you need to be able to measure them properly and fulfill them. Now, what he was going to, I think initially, I'm not an Alan Watts scholar, but that's very much Rousseau. Like, it's society's fault that I had to steal to stay alive. It says the blame's over there. It points the finger all the time. Augustine says, that's the direct contrast to this, is no, it's my fault. I chose to steal. And that puts the blame on something you can actually control. Like, I can't. How do you change society? Like, do that right now. Like, you can't do that, but you can start here. This is where the unknown and the known intermix. You can start there at least. You can start with your own character. That's being red pilled, right? Something like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting from living multiple, like everyone has stages throughout life, and they have different attitudes and different ones and shit. At least I did. And it's interesting, like, what caused me to feel and think this way compared to this way and shit. And it goes back and forth. So there's something in the background there that, you know what I mean? It's just...
It helps you know yourself if you write it down. And then when things disappear or lose their touch, you can roughly say maybe that was a demon. And if things get clearer and maybe I should pursue that as you write it down, well, maybe that seems like a good thing.
Like I called it in the last episode I did, bright spots. Like when you feel depressed, but every now and then you're okay. And and you don't know why.
Moments of clarity.
And those are called bright spots, and try to pay attention to that stuff. Because it's telling you something.
So I had to tell my wife, she's like, are you coming? I'm like, no, it's going to be a little late, honey. Yeah, there are moments of clarity, and maybe those are gifts to you when you see your life. Maybe I should stop this. Then you go right back into it. Those are like little lifelines.
Well, when I was making some changes, I noticed that. And it's like, well, okay, what it was, I'll just explain it. Is I noticed sometimes, like I was real depressed, and I noticed sometimes everything would seem okay. And then I'd go back again. But what it was is the certain days where I was real depressed, I just wanted to get through the night. And so I lowered my expectations to just getting through the night. And then it was like, I can do that. And it's like, then I was like, my expectations for life are way out of control. I expect way too much shit. And so that was a bright spot for me.
That's a good way to measure it. Pets, well, it's dealing with pain. Pain shortens your time window. Yeah. All right, well, I must be going.
All right. The wife calls.
Yep. Oh my gosh, your cat's so fat.
I know, this stupid cat. Because it cries when I'm trying to cut its food down.
You listen to it.
Sometimes.
Are you a good master?
All right, Chad Johnson, Crown of Thoughts. I haven't done one in a while. And this was a good one. We talked about a lot of cool shit that I think was put in a way that makes sense to me anyways.
You gonna read your Bible?
I have to read this book by Mary Young, who's coming on here.
Oh, okay.
And I'll grab it real quick. But I have to read it before she comes on.
Oh,
So
when's she coming on?
When I finish reading this
What's the book about? I like books.
It is.
Blossom and Bone.
Yes.
What's it about?
Mary E. Young, a bone witch.
A bone witch.
Yeah. Believe like fantasy.
Oh, okay. Fiction. Cool.
So, all right, guys.
Let me know if you find the hero story in there.
I bet I guarantee it.
So,
It's a fantasy novel. All right, Crown of Thoughts, Chad Johnson. Everybody have a good day. And whatever. I'm trying to stop swearing constantly, man.
yeah, you're doing all right.
All right, guys. Peace.